Okay, so let's talk a little bit about toxins and MS. When I talk about toxins, I'm talking about man-made compounds that are developed by scientists and chemists and put into all kinds of things that we use, like our personal care products, cleaning products, building materials, furniture, things that we spray our homes and our food with to keep the bugs away. So they're everywhere. You can't escape them. Another feature of these toxins is that they're long-lasting. They are intentionally made to hang around. Otherwise, your TV would disintegrate on you after a year or two, right? But you can own a TV and then go throw it in a landfill and it'll just be there. It won't maybe look perfect, but those molecules are still attached to each other and it still looks like a TV. It did not biodegrade. So they're long lasting. They have really long half-lives. And that matters because when it gets into our bodies, they hang out in our bodies for a long time. So because we know they're widespread, we know that we're all exposed. Because they're long lasting, we know that that exposure remains. And here's the other thing. Toxins actually interact with each other. And 1 + 1 is no longer 2, it could be 3, 4, or 5, right? They have this synergistic activity. When two bad things get together, they do a lot of badness together. And there is lots of data that links toxic exposures from these man-made compounds to the onset and progression of MS. And I've linked one of the articles here, but what they did was they looked at people with MS versus, matched controls that didn't have MS. And these people actually had higher exposures to pesticides. In fact, they looked at agricultural workers who work in farms where pesticides are being sprayed every day. There was an increased risk of getting a diagnosis of MS. VOCs also are volatile organic compounds, things like paint thinner, they usually have a smell to them, I know you guys aren't smelling paint thinner all the time, but maybe you're spraying perfume or other scented things. Those are also volatile organic compounds. And they looked at people who were in the shoe and leather industry who were coming in contact with a lot of VOCs. And it was noted that the rate of MS increased in that population. Same thing with heavy metals, mercury in areas, there's a region in Iran that has really high rate levels of contamination with mercury. I think it's in Esfahan, and they also have increased rates of MS. So these things do matter, right? And people always send me like these articles about mercury is the reason I have MS, right? I don't know if it's the only reason. I think it's part of the reason, right? There are many hits along the timeline that make you arrive at a diagnosis of MS. So what if we could minimize our exposures to these things? Would that make things better? Would that slow down that progression towards autoimmunity? And I think of the immune system as very dynamic. It's not like you're stuck with autoimmunity to the same degree when you have it. You can shift back and forth towards having more autoimmunity or less autoimmunity. And the things we're going to talk about hopefully will push you towards less autoimmunity. Okay, so what do toxins do to us? What do they do to human health? Well, they damage mitochondria, and there's lots of evidence of this. These mitochondria are the parts of the cell that produce energy for us to fuel our bodies. And when they don't work, the symptoms you might get are fatigue, brain fog, pain, headaches, anxiety, depression, muscle pain, palpitations. So those are signs of a damaged mitochondria. And if I just said a bunch of words that you were like, yep, I have a few of those things, it's something to consider if you're going to take an upstream approach. How do we get the mitochondria to work better? Toxins can disrupt hormones. They can also disrupt our gut microbiome. These are the good, friendly bugs that live in our large intestine that do a lot for us that we don't know how to do for ourselves. And just in the last decade, we've learned so much about them, and they do play a role in the onset and progression of autoimmune diseases. Gut inflammation is another one where just the lining of the GI tract can get inflamed and you can get what's leaky gut. And this has a lot to do with the immune system because the immune system, so much of it sits right there in the gut. And toxins can actually dysregulate our immune systems. And a dysregulated immune system is one that has forgotten the rules. So it doesn't quite know when to turn on inflammation and when to turn it off, or when to attack something and when to not attack something. And so when you get dysregulated and confused, maybe one day you start attacking myelin. But I think to a great degree, a lot of the bullet points on this page are reversible to some degree, maybe not completely, but it's worth trying, I think. Okay, so when toxins impact human health, how does that show up? For sure, autoimmunity and inflammation, and symptoms like brain fog and fatigue, difficulty concentrating, your mood is off, you can't sleep. When you eat, you're bloated, you're constipated, you have abdominal pain, you have reflux and indigestion, and that's just a few examples, okay? It could really be anything.